Once it pops, your life will stop. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Aliens Fireteam Elite Burster Alien. Featured in the Aliens Fireteam Elite video game, Burster Aliens are quadruped xenomorphs distinguished by bright green subcutaneous acid bladders. When slain, they explode into a lethal pool of acid. Burster Aliens don't consider their own survival, only the survival of their hive. Survive the hive, fight to contain the evolving xenomorph threat in the cooperative survival shooter Aliens Fireteam Elite. Just before we get a closer look at the Burster Alien, I want to fully disclose to the first 4 rows of audience that are currently watching this video. You may notice, looking around right now, that you and the chairs next to you are all covered in plastic. That's because I would consider you to be the bursting zone. All of the pus that leaves this alien are probably going to hit the first 4 rows. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that in advance before you guys chose your seating. That being said, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA. Where we go sometimes with these videos. I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA, yes, that did provide the sample, yes, of the Aliens Fireteam Elite Burster Alien that we could have a look at in this video. Let's get things underway with the tape measure now. As of right now, I have the tail bent. You don't have to have it that way, but based on what we have for the configuration right now, we're going to measure off. We're going to start first with inches. From the back of the tail right now to the front of the head right now, you're looking at the Burster Alien being about 6 inches in length. And again, that tail can be a lot longer if you want to. Flipping this around, which way did we have it? Flipping it around to Centimeter Town, you're looking at the Burster Alien as of right now being about 15 centimeters in length. Now, the Burster Alien is considered a quadruped xenomorph. In other words, that when it moves on all 4s. To bring in other examples of quadruped xenomorphs, here's what he looks like next to the runner alien, and here's what he looks like next to the prowler alien. And not only do they share the same way that they move, but they also share the same bodies as well, as the Burster is the same body that NECA had already used for both the runner and the prowler we looked at before. While he's not necessarily considered a quadruped, he's a character that moves on at least his back hind legs. Here's also what the Burster Alien looks like next to the Spitter Alien. Now, Spitter had some serious retooling done. Burster can't take credit for being a retooled figure, at least in that sense, but he does get a very differently sculpted head sculpt, and he also makes use of translucent green plastic that makes up the majority of his body. Cleaning up some of the alien clutter and moving the camera in just a little bit more, the Burster Alien, being the fact it's on all 4s, doesn't require a display stand. So unlike the Spitter we looked at before that had it for an accessory, the Burster Alien isn't going to get that. And really, again, doesn't need it either. What it does have, though, instead, and different from the others we've looked at already, is that most of its body, and I put that in quotations, most of its body is using translucent green plastic. What I can see from picking the figure up is it obviously is the case with the head. The head is using that translucent green plastic and nicely painted, added the additional black onto that. Its body is also seeming to be using that same translucent green plastic, and it seems also to be the case with its top shoulders and the top of its legs. The rest of it, though, I think is actually just done in a more solid plastic, and then they've just gone and replicated the same coloring of the green by painting it, like the neck. Like things like its lower legs also has the additional green, but it's not the same type of green as what we get at the top of the hind legs. And also the lower end of the arms also seem like it's get fluorescent green, but it's not a see-through or translucent green that we get above. So I think they probably have used different plastics to get the job done. It would make sense too. I can't imagine why they would have to mold the entire figure when they can really just mold, like, again, the body, the head, and the tops of the limbs, and just keep like everything else underneath more of a solid plastic and then paint the rest a little later on. The head sculpt wise, it's really an interesting head. It kind of reminds me a bit like a nest of spider eggs. I'm really hoping nobody is eating at the time of this video. I really like the use that they've done with the translucent green plastic, and again, having it sort of blobular like this. No, that's not even a word, but having these little sacs sticking up like this, you almost feel as if you'd be able to go in there and squeeze these. I think that would be fun if they had found a way to actually make it a slightly softer plastic, but of course, it would make the whole head a softer bit of plastic. The whole idea with these aliens is instead of actually attacking you, they're literally just running towards you in the hopes that you're going to be blowing them to bits and showering you in a blanket of acid as a resulting of it. Just the interesting look and the aspects of this head sculpt is really a unique thing that we have yet to see with any of the other Aliens Fireteam Elite figures. The mouth does open and close the same way and still has the inner jaw the exact same way that does pull out the exact same way. I don't think they've done anything different. At least it seems almost as if they probably used the same smaller jaw on the inside of the mouth. Again, that does open and close. You've got some nice use of the additional silver both on the tops and the bottoms of the teeth. They add some additional nice lighter brown added in there as well. It doesn't make too much of an appearance anywhere else really on the figure. It seems only really like the mouth is the only part that gets that additional lighter brown, almost kind of a beige color. The use of the dark black actually is a really nice way to enrich and certainly enhance the sculpting of all these additional sacs of acid. Adding the additional black also kind of looks like it's somewhat symbiotic. It's almost as if it's a possessed alien by the venom symbiote. Like I said, though, for the rest of the body, it's the same body as what we've gotten with all the other three figures before. This one actually closer resembles both the runner. In fact, actually, runner is probably like the best one to compare. I mean, to look at it, it looks like both the ribs, the back of the spine, even like the legs really don't change that much from one to the other. The legs seem the same, other than, again, like this is more see-through plastic. And it looks like also they're using the same feet and hands as well. Tail is going to be a little bit different, but not by much. I mean, to look at the tips of the blades, the only thing that does change really a little bit is the fact it looks like almost the bottom of it is slightly more pointier. But it could just be my eyes playing tricks on me. The runner definitely has a lot more brown, though, if you're comparing it to the burster. The burster relies more on just the black and the green that's sort of peeking its way through. But other than that, it does look like they're using the exact same body between the two figures. And that's fine, again. Even if they're meaning that they have to use the same molds again and again, if we're getting figures like this so very different in design and coloring, I'm all for that. Again, like the coloring of the green really does work well with the black, and you see a little less of the green as we kind of get to more of the body of the figure. In case you are curious and worried that the figure is maybe using translucent green plastic everywhere, don't worry. They actually have used solid plastic for the shoulder joints. They also have used solid plastic for the elbow joints. And basically anything that's moving on the figure, you'll know that they're actually using a more harder, solid, matte plastic as opposed to the clear plastic. Clear plastic would have certainly been a bad choice to go with, especially for times before with the Cult Classics. When they did use clear plastic, it was prone to breaking over time, but not going to be the case here. That might also have something to do with why they also decided to use anything that's near a joint seems to be the more solid plastic. Anything that's further away from a joint, like, well, I guess technically that wouldn't really count because there's a ball joint here at the top that attaches the front of its torso to the back of its spine. So that kind of defeats me just saying that. For the articulation, though, on Burster Alien, we're going to start things off first with its head sculpt. The head does rotate all the way around. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems to be the case that there's almost like a ratcheted joint. As I'm moving the head, if I stop talking, though, for a second, can you hear that? It almost seems like it hits a ledge a bit before you start turning it again. And it seems like, yeah, it's definitely hitting some sort of ratchet joint. It's not a ratchet in the sense that it's going to be making the noise, but there seems to be hitting a ledge or something as I'm moving the head around. The head also is on a hinge joint too, so it can move back and forth this way. And there's also an additional ball joint at the base of the neck that attaches onto the rest of its torso. So you can move it back and forth this way and also back and forth also this way as well. I guess technically you could have it to the point where it's standing up. I mean, although even though it is a quadruped alien, I guess if you wanted to, you could also have it on its hind legs too. Back of the torso, or I guess where the back of the torso meets the rest of the spine, there's a ball joint, so you can rotate that back and forth. It moves up and also moves down. You can take the shoulders, and the shoulders comfortably come out, well, at a 90-degree angle bend. You can also take the arms and rotate them all the way around as well. Single hinge on the elbow. Rotation also works the same way in that elbow joint. So you can move the forearm back and forth, and you can also rotate the hand all the way around and hinging that also back and forth. Legs split out. There's the joints on the inside of the leg, again, to show you that they're not using the clear plastic to do that. You can take the legs and move them forward and back. There is 2 points actually on the knees, a joint right there and a joint a little further down. And on the back hind leg of the feet, there's also, or on the legs, there's also a hinge joint right there as well. A little tight, a little stiff, but I'd much rather a tighter joint than a looser joint. And then on the back ankle, there's a hinge joint right there. And there doesn't seem to be any swiveling in the actual feet themselves. It's only just a single hinge joint. Nice looking figure. I really like the look of this one. I don't know if I would say I like it as much as Spitter. Spitter might be maybe my favorite of what we've looked at for figure-wise. But again, like, to take what I think to be the closest in proximity in mold, take the Runner, right? Take the Burster Alien. Mostly the same mold, other than, again, they changed a few little things. The tops of the thigh, for example, are different from one to the other. Tails seem to be the same. Spine seems to be the same. Torso seems to be the same, and a lot of the arms seem to be similarly shared from one to the other. But again, using the translucent green plastic, not only does it make the alien look gross, as if I'd be able to actually squeeze it and just squirting everywhere, but also makes for a more colorful looking alien too. And adding the contrasting colors of that symbiote black really gives a really interesting element to the Burster Alien. One that we really haven't seen before. We sort of got teased a little bit with the Spitter Alien having that translucent plastic on the sides of its cheeks, but we kind of get the full effect here with, let me just move Runner Alien out of the way here. We get the full effect here now with Burster Alien. It would kind of be interesting to see what this could be done with, like, in a red color scheme, kind of similar to what we got with the Prowler. Having the concept of using mostly a translucent body and then painting over top some of the parts to it, I think could really make for an interesting effect with an alien figure. And again, like, if NECA really did want to reuse this mold, even though it's traditionally green in the game, I would be all open to the idea of them actually reusing this mold for a future figure down the road. Call it like Arachnid Alien. I guess we already got Arachnid Alien. Call it something along those lines, and maybe changing instead the green, make it into something different, like a darker red or orange instead. I think it's a really interesting mold that should definitely be reused again at some point. Now, this is only more wishful thinking than anything else, but could you imagine if NECA had found the way to take the Burster Alien's head and make it not only a softer plastic that was squishable, but also put a liquid inside of it? Now, before you say to yourself, there's no way you'd be able to do that with a toy line, there are fairly enough toys out there that not only are soft, but actually have a liquid inside. Although those figures don't tend to have any articulation. Being able to do that and still keep articulation on the alien, there is a risk of leakage. And that's probably the last thing the company really wants. A tall, tall order that would be for NECA to be able to incorporate a squishy, liquid center alien and still maintain all of the articulation. As wishful thinking as the person was behind the camera to say that, never would be able to happen at all. Instead, what we can at least benefit from is the fact that this figure does make use of a translucent green plastic. And while it isn't necessarily squishy, his head certainly does look like the type that you'd be able to go in there and squeeze its little pores and pus-filled sacs. That's just absolutely disgusting. In fact, I think there's a series on TV. I've heard of it. It's like Dr. Pimple Popper. The whole point of the show is people go in with these large, oversized glands that need to be squeezed. And I guess Dr. Pimple Popper is the person that's popping those pimples. Why did we get into that topic of discussion? Oh, right, it was me. I was talking about squeezing the pus. Anyways, great looking figure from the folks over at NECA Toys. Once again, we are getting a lot of the same mold as what we got before from Runner already, but differently handled by using the translucent green plastic. And again, one other thing I wanted to correct myself from saying in the earlier end of this review is I did say, like, the part of the mouth that did use that kind of beige color doesn't make any more of an appearance. I guess technically a little bit of it also makes its appearance to its hind legs. Although it's a slightly darker shade, the knees are also about that same sort of color scheme as well. Just want to throw that in there in case somebody was curious. What do you guys think, though, of Burster Alien? And really, a better question to be asking you guys is, of the Alien Fireteam Elite figures that we've looked at, all four of them, which is your favorite figure? You know, even though I like the look of Burster Alien, as disgusting as gross as it looks, I gotta think I still like Spitter Alien as my favorite. Really like the additional molding that went into that figure. But again, the neat thing about the Fireteam Elite is that they're all each individually unique aliens. No similar, even though molding is similar, the designs are so drastically different from one to the other. A big thank you, though, to the folks over at NECA that did provide the sample of Burster Alien that we can have a look at in this review. If you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content that you guys have been seeing, especially loving the fact that we have been covering off the rest of the Fireteam Elite aliens, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, and as well turn on the bell notification so you're going to get reminders every single time a new video pops up. And of course, popping up at the end of this video as well, I have to remind you guys as well that there is, after all, a playlist. So if there is more time on your hands, you have a little more of the afternoon to kill, and you want to check out more videos, at least of the NECA variety, check out my playlist that covers off everything I've reviewed from NECA from start to, well, it's not really technically a finish because we're going to keep going with this. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.